UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber. UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
Tomex. Fellam sa visibija awama kar dina 3ක් දක්වා toilet එක fresh ව තමයි. Tomex.
Tonight, Racing the Dead. The Chinese Foreign Ministry calls for a resurrection of the China-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement talks after Foreign Minister's visit. Leave it to us. The Employers Federation says a 5,000 rupee salary hike to workers not sustainable.
The government should refrain from interfering into the salary bargaining process in the private sector.
The plot thickens. Ministers' Council says new Fortress New York Stock Exchange listing a fabrication. Another one. Just as the world gets used to Omicron, it prepares to say hello to Deltacron. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Monday, the 10th of January 2022.
Introducing New Hellmann's, the world's #1 mayonnaise brand, now in Sri Lanka.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammikek Naik. After reaching a stalemate in 2018, the Chinese government has suggested reopening talks on the China-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. Following the visit of China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi over the weekend, the Chinese Foreign Ministry released a statement today calling for talks to resume the agreement that holds a lot of promise for Sri Lanka's manufacturers. In 2018, talks over the FTA hit a wall after the Sri Lankan government at the time called for a revision of specific terms that China's negotiators refused to budge on.
Discussions between China and Sri Lanka on a free trade agreement commenced in 2015. However, after multiple rounds of talks, discussions screeched to a halt in 2018 when the government at the time demanded a renegotiation of the terms. The terms in question related to a review of the agreement every 10 years. It was this point which led to the deal being placed on the back burner. Sri Lanka's chief trade negotiator KJ Veerasinghe was quoted in 2018 as saying that another point of contention was the failure by the two sides to agree on tariffs. Namely, Sri Lanka's disagreement with China's request for a 90% tariff waiver on all goods exchanged between the two countries. For example, China's free trade agreements with Chile, Peru and New Zealand have similar terms, with the Chinese having committed to eliminating duties on 95 to 97% of their tariff lines. This affects 88 to 99% of bilateral imports between the countries. However, the Sri Lankan side instead wanted zero tariffs on only half of the products concerned, and an expansion gradually over 20 years. However, 4 years later, it seems that the stage is being set for a resumption of talks on the FTA. Discussions between visiting Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and President Gotabaya Rajapaksa yesterday reportedly touched on the resumption of the stalled negotiations. This was confirmed in an official communique issued by the Chinese Foreign Ministry this afternoon that stated that the two nations must make use of the two engines, the Colombo Port City and the Hambantota Port projects, to tap the opportunities of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership and China's vast market, and also discuss the restart of FTA talks. It added that this would send more positive signals to the world and contribute to Sri Lanka's economic recovery and development. But what does Sri Lanka aim to gain from a free trade agreement with a country that enjoys a much larger share of the pie? Consider this. China exported $543 million in goods to Sri Lanka and imported only $35.9 million in goods from the island in September last year. In September 2021, year-on-year Sri Lankan imports from China grew by 88%, while Sri Lankan exports grew by 60.4%. Sri Lanka has a comparative advantage though vis-à-vis the world in 566 products, out of which Sri Lanka currently exports 243 items to China. There are an additional 299 products with trade potential to China, which are not exported by Sri Lanka to China, but are imported by China from the rest of the world. This presents new market opportunities for Sri Lankan exporters. In fact, Sri Lanka has the potential to increase exports to China across all product categories, especially textiles, vegetable products, plastics and rubber. Taking this into consideration, it seems that Sri Lanka has everything to gain from fast-tracking its negotiations with China. With the government banking on more export revenue in the next few years to shore up its forex reserves, a free trade agreement with one of the world's largest consumer markets right now seems like the sensible thing to do.
නියම ක්වලිටියට හැදෙන අලුත් ටියාරා රස පදමට අලුත් වෙලා.
The Employers Federation today outright rejected the government's request to hike the private sector salaries by 5,000 rupees. They expect the government to refrain from interfering in the private sector, adding that a salary increment of this magnitude would destabilize some companies.
A discussion was worked off today between the Employers Federation, the private sector employers, and Minister of Labour Nimal Siripala de Silva. The talks were centred on the prospect of increasing the salaries in the private sector by Rs 5,000, following a similar move announced by the Finance Minister last week for the public sector.
All the representatives who came for this meeting today, they raised various issues, their concerns and their grievances, why they cannot pay this 5,000 rupees now. They forwarded to me that most of the companies, they have already incurred a lot of expenses. They have taken the moratorium from the banks, and from March this month they have to repay all these loans. Therefore, they will submit me a memorandum tomorrow in writing the difficulties they are facing and why they are not in a position to pay this 5,000 rupees. So I will be submitting all these representations to the Cabinet of Ministers and then arrive at a decision.
The concerted view of the private sector is that currently the private sector is going through very difficult times, and already most of the companies have given such increases to the employees, either in way of salary increases and on top of that various other allowances, etc. In addition, the costs have risen, like cost of meals, transportation, other medical benefits given to the employees, all that has risen. So that also adds to the cost to the company of the private sector. Currently, the industry is trying to basically come out of the doldrums after more than 2 years very difficult situation impacted with the pandemic, and it is just trying to get up. And if any further burden like this comes upon the private sector, it will seriously affect the sustainability of the private sector, and most companies will not be able to survive because these costs cannot be passed on to the end consumer. So overall, the concerted view of the private sector is the government should refrain from interfering into the salary bargaining process in the private sector, and it should be left for the companies to discuss with the employees and reach amicable solutions based on their future market situation and the future plans, etc.
Now then, the legal counsel representing the 3 cabinet ministers who support the petitions filed against the AdaDerana share transfer deal told the court today that the US company at the heart of the deal, New Fortress Energy, is not listed in the New York Stock Exchange, contrary to the company claims. The submission came when the relevant petitions were taken up before the Supreme Court.
The petitions filed seeking the nullification of the decision to transfer shares to the Kerawalapitiya Yugadanavi plant to a US company were taken up today for a third day before a 5-member bench of the Supreme Court chaired by Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya. President's counsel Udita Igalaheva represented ministers Uday Gammanpilla, Vimal Veeravansa and Vasudeva Nanayakara, who submitted affidavits in support of the petitions. He told the court, quote, "The cabinet paper pertaining to this matter was not provided to any minister. A decision wasn't taken on the cabinet paper either. As such, my clients cannot be accused of violating the cabinet's collective responsibility. That's why these 3 ministers sent a letter to the finance minister seeking a discussion to discuss the matter. But in this matter, it is the finance minister who has violated the cabinet's collective responsibility," unquote. He added that the Attorney General should act as a guardian of the people's rights and that he should execute his duties independently, irrespective of any manner of influence. On the US company New Fortress Energy, the legal counsel of the 3 cabinet ministers said, quote, "The company documents say that this company is registered in the New York Stock Exchange. That's a lie. Broad issues arise about this company's financial power. Putting such a company in charge of the future of local resources is dangerous. Further, the information provided in the project report submitted by the company are contradictory," unquote. Then the Chief Justice asked the President's counsel whether the Cabinet of Ministers hadn't approved the share transfer. The response was that such a cabinet paper wasn't submitted and that it wasn't approved. As such, he pointed out to an issue arises to how the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance signed the agreement. Then, Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam said, quote, "We don't have anything to conceal here. Everything has happened with transparency. If the ministers who are plaintiffs are unaware of it, then there's nothing we can do." Unquote. Afterwards, President's counsel Romesh De Silva, representing another plaintiff of the petitions, the Ceylon Electricity Board, said that the relevant agreement has been inked legally. When pointing out that there are 2 cabinet decisions which give the green light to enter into agreement, he noted that the petitions had been filed sounds a proper comprehension of facts. The petition will be taken up next on the 12th of this month.
A foreign national led airport security, the police and Air Force commandos on an hours-long cat-and-mouse game in the early hours of this morning after his escape during immigration questioning. The suspect, whose origins are yet to be determined, was held for trying to use a fake Seychelles passport to board a flight to Paris. After hiding on top of the departure lounge roof, he was finally arrested by Air Force commandos and the police.
There was chaos at the Bandaranaike International Airport in the early hours of this morning when a foreign national detected attempting to leave the country using fake travel documents escaped during immigration interrogation, leading airport security on an hours-long chase. The foreign national, whose true origins are yet to be verified, had been red flagged by immigration and immigration officers while trying to board Etihad Airways flight EY265 to Paris via Dubai. Reports say that he was in possession of a fake passport. The suspect had arrived at the airport and entered the departure terminal and approached the immigration counter when his suspect documents were spotted. Officers from the Immigration and Immigration Department became suspicious of the Seychelles passport presented by him and had then referred him to the Border Surveillance Unit for investigations. Afterwards, while being questioned by officials in what can best be described as a scene from an action movie, the suspect had fled towards the departure terminal. He had then sprinted through the terminal, through the customs section, and jumped over security barriers to avoid airport security. This had then led to the deployment of Air Force personnel, including commandos and the airport police. However, the suspect had managed to evade his pursuers and climbed onto the departure terminal's roof by means of a wall. Despite his best attempts, Air Force commandos were finally able to locate him through security camera footage. However, he had then leapt off the roof and onto the airport's exit road in a last-ditch effort to get away. Despite his attempts, at around 2:15 a.m., he was finally surrounded by immigration and immigration officers, Air Force commandos, police and airport security personnel, and arrested near the airport's exit gate. Airport security sources believe that the suspect could be a fugitive or a member of an international criminal outfit. He is currently in the custody of the Criminal Investigation Department.
We will see you shortly. Bear with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, 3 bodies found today, of which 2 are yet to be identified, are puzzling authorities. The unidentified remains washed up on the shores of Bambalapitiya and Vellavatta today.
A body of a man was washed ashore along the coast of Bambalapitiya this morning. The police estimate the deceased to be between 40 to 50 years of age, and his identity is yet to be confirmed. It is also suspected that the body may have been in sea for quite some time. Following the magisterial inquest, the body was taken to the Kalubovila hospital. A short while later, however, the body of another man was washed ashore along the Vellavatta coastline. The police estimate that the unidentified may be 40 to 55 years of age. Following the magisterial inquest, the body too was taken to the Kalubovila hospital mortuary. Then in the afternoon, a third body, also that of a man, was found from a canal in Kolonava. The deceased has been, however, identified as a resident of Meethotmulla. Vallampitiya and Dematagudda police stations are conducting investigations pertaining to the incident. Whether the 3 deaths are linked or whether they are murders are yet to be ascertained.
Now then, in addition to the highly mutated Omicron variant, scientists in Cyprus have discovered a hybrid strain of COVID known as Deltacron. The new strain has been identified as being a combination of the Delta and Omicron variants and has been detected in 25 people across the country.
So far, the world has come to know of 5 variants of concern, with the latest being Omicron. Since then, various studies have identified that many mutations on the variant give it an increased ability to evade vaccine and natural immunity. However, the vaccine does reduce the chance of severe illness and death. The virus evolution meant that there was always a possibility of these variants merging. The possibility of this was also conceded by the World Health Organization. With that being the case, it however pointed out that getting vaccinated is the only solution to prevent the virus from evolving that far. Now, scientists in Cyprus have found a COVID strain, which is a combination of two variants. It's a cross between Delta and Omicron. The discovery has been made when gene sequencing samples from COVID patients who were simultaneously infected by Delta and Omicron. A professor of biological sciences at the University of Cyprus says that his team identified 25 such cases in the country. He added that the relative frequency of the combined infection is higher among patients hospitalized due to COVID-19 as compared to non-hospitalized patients. However, his personal view is that this strain will also be displaced by the highly contagious Omicron variant, as was the case with Delta. The new hybrid COVID strain is named Deltacron. Meanwhile, with the discovery of Deltacron, the question arises whether there should be a change in the vaccine landscape.
පරීක්ෂණයෙන් දිගටම සොයාගත් දෙයක් තමයි මොන ප්‍රභේද වුණත් ඇල්ෆා වුණත් ඩෙල්ටා වුණත් ඔමික්‍රෝන් වුණත් එන්නත නිසා අනිවාර්යෙන් යම් ප්‍රතිශතයක ආරක්ෂාවක් තියෙනවා. විශේෂයෙන්ම එන්නත ලබාගෙන මාස 3ක් මාස 6ක් වගේ කාලයක් ඇතුළත ඒ ආරක්ෂාව පවතිනවා. නමුත් ප්‍රතිදේහ කියන ඒවා අපේ ඇඟේ අඩු වෙලා යනවා ඒ කාලයත් එක්ක. දැන් අපි ගත්තොත් සමහර අනිත් එන්නත් පවා අපි මාත්‍රා කීපයක් ලබා ගන්නවා. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා අපි කියන්නේ ප්‍රතිදේහවල අඩුවීමක් වුණොත් එහෙම නව ප්‍රභේදයකට මම හිතන්නේ තර්ජනයක් ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් ඒ අවස්ථාවේ අපිට පරීක්ෂණ වලින් නිගමනය කරන්න වෙනවා තව මාත්‍රාවක් ලබා ගත යුතුද නැද්ද කියන එකයි.
In the meantime, research around the world has shown that the level of immunity developed following COVID infection is on par with that given by the vaccine. There are also many people who are vaccinated with a 2-dose regime who think that they might have been infected with COVID at some stage due to the widespread nature of the virus in the community. In some instances, a combination of these two elements is having an adverse impact on the people's decision making when it comes to the booster.
සමහරු කියනවා හිම්බිරිසා ගතියක් වගේ තිබ්බ අපිට ටෙස්ට් කරන්න නම් හම්බුන්නේ නැහැ. කොවිඩ් හැදෙන්නේ ඇති ඒ නිසා අපි ගන්න ඕනේ නැහැ කියලා මං හිතන්නේ. ඒ තරම්ම සුසු දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. නියත වශයෙන්ම කොවිඩ් හැදුන කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා නම් ඔවුන්ට මාසුන්ට ප්‍රමාද කරන්න පුළුවන් දැන්ට තියෙන අපේ විධිවිධාන අනුව. නමුත් එයත් සමහරලාට වෙනස් වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. නමුත් ඔබට ඒ ගැන මම හිතන්නේ ඔබම තීරණයක් ගන්නවට වඩා සුසුයි ඔබේ ප්‍රදේශයේ සෞඛ්‍ය වෛද්‍යවරුන්ගේ කාර්යාලයට පැමිණ ඒ ගැන නිර්දේශයක් ගන්න එක.
A key observation during the booster rollout is the lack of enthusiasm among the public. As with most drugs, vaccines also have a shelf life.
Vaccine වල expiry date එක නම් තව කල් තියෙනවා. නමුත් ඒකෙන් අදහස් කරන්නේ නැහැ අපිට සදාකාලිකවම මේක බලාගෙන ඉන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. මොකද අපි එහෙම හෙට අනිද්දා expire වෙන ඒවා නෙමෙයි ගෙනල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. සාධාරණ කාලයක් තියලා තමයි හැම වෙලේම අපි ගේන්නේ. නමුත් ඒක අපි ඒ විදිහට ගෙන්නලා තියෙන්නේ vaccine අන්තිම මොහොත වෙනකොට expire වෙන්න කලින් ගහගන්න නෙවෙයි. හැකි ඉක්මනින් ගහගන්න ඕන. ඒ වගේම සාධාරණ ආයු කාලයක් තියෙන ප්‍රබලතාවයේ මොනම ආකාරයකින්වත් වියකි ගිහිල්ලා නැති එන්නත් ලබා දීමේ අවශ්‍යතාවය නිසා. ඒ නිසා ආයු කාලය ඉක්මනට එක් බලා නොසිට මේ එන්නත ලබා ගැනීමයි වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. හෙට අනිද්දා එක්ස්පයර් වෙන ඒවා ගෙනල්ලා නැති බව මට බය නැතුව කියන්න පුළුවන්.
Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, and chief incumbent of the temple affiliated to the Maharagama Apeksha Hospital, Venerable Henegama Dhammadhara Thera, declared open the St. Peregrines a welcome home yesterday. The facility will look to provide free accommodation to families of cancer patients who travel long distances for treatment at the Apeksha Hospital. Speaking at the event yesterday, His Eminence the Cardinal stated that the facility is open for people of all faiths and will stand as a beacon of fellowship.
The St. Peregrines Welcome Home was declared open yesterday by the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, and the chief incumbent of the Apeksha Hospital Temple, Venerable Henegama Dhammadhara Thera. The 4-story facility that aims to provide free lodging for families of cancer patients at the Apeksha Cancer Hospital in Maragama was constructed at a cost of 179 million rupees. Speaking at the ceremony yesterday, His Eminence the Cardinal stated that the facility will not only welcome Christians, but was constructed using donations from people of all faiths to be used for everyone, regardless of their faith.
I told Father Jude that this house has to be a house for anybody who comes. We don't have any particular group for which we wish to cater. Any poor person who knocks on the door is to be welcomed. And we also said that it is not only Catholic but also Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim. We give them a space in this building for their prayers and for their spiritual activities also. Whatever the religious group is, it doesn't matter to us. We want to help human beings as human beings.
Welcome back. This is First at 9. Sri Lankan shares retreated from record highs today and ended lower 1% as industrial and financial stocks weighed. The all-share price index closed 1.23% down at 13,117.07 points after settling at record peaks for the last 6 sessions, with local investors driving the rally. The index also halted its 8th session of gains today, having risen 8.63% last week, its highest since late January last year. Now with that, here's Vidushika Pereira with today's market report, followed by a currency update.
Today we saw a major dip in the market, disrupting the winning spree that was there during the whole of last week. The decline in the index was largely caused by the decline in retail favorite counters in diversified financial sector, and also food, beverage and tobacco sector, which was largely contributed towards the negativity of the index. So with that, the total positive counters for the day was 74 counters, while 166 counters contributed negatively.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.